Alrighty, so today we're going to talk about Sporting KC in the Moving Forward series episode. I'm actually rocking with their third kit that they, of course, wear last year to pay homage to the City Wizard. And I think it's fitting the fact that I'm rocking this because, yeah, it was not a great season for Sporting KC, just like the Wiz in the early days where they were really kind of the laughing stock of MLS. Yeah, things have not gone well for the Sporting KC side, and it's kind of expected because it feels like this team is heading to a new era. The era with Peter Vermes and kind of dragging this team to irrelevant is now officially over. He's no longer the head coach of this team, and I expect heading into next season they will be having a permanent head coach for the first time that is not named Peter Vermes since 2009 of this team. That just shows you how long Peter Vermes has been with this team. And I think with the way that how MLS is working, with the way that the coaching turnover is at its all-time high, I feel like we're getting to a point where we might not see a situation like Peter Vermes, or even in Jim Curran cases where we could see a head coach that might be with the team for about 10 plus year, except Ryan Schmetzer. Ryan Schmetzer is a special showcase. I mean, for the most part, we're always going to see a lot of head coaching turnover that is going to happen. Now, the dangerous thing about Sporting KC is that they don't want to get into the situation where they go through a bit of a rotation in terms of head coaches. They don't want to fall into the same trap that DC, of course, had, where DC had a long time head coach with Ben Olsen being there, and then it's just been a revolving door ever since. But we'll talk about that as we go along. But yeah, this season they finished 7-6-20. Yeah, that is a brutal record. In fact, the 20 losses that they've suffered this season, that is the most by anybody in MLS. They're the only team to have eclipsed 20 losses so far this season with 27 points. They scored 46 goals, which is actually pretty respectable for a team that is near the bottom of the standings, but they gave up 70 goals. That is by far the most that any team has had in MLS. I mean, when you have given up more goals than the San Jose Earthquakes, yeah, your defense was bad, and we kind of saw this coming too. I mean, heading into this season, we knew this defense was going to be bad, and not only the fact that it was bad throughout the season, but it just kind of feel like it got worse, and it got even worse than I imagined. The fact that this defense is now on the verge where they're very fortunate the fact that the season is about to end, because if we have a couple more games left, they might break the record that the Quakes set, I believe, last season with the most goal conceded in a single season. But they have an ugly record of minus 24, which I believe that's the worst in the Western Conference. They're currently 14th in the Western Conference, and they've been eliminated from playoff contention a long time ago. Another thing I forgot to also mention is the fact that they also got ousted in the first round of the CONCACAF Champions Cup, but that's kind of expected. When you're playing against Messi and Friend, that feels like it's just kind of a Messi and Friends invitational to get knocked out, and that's exactly what we saw in that game. Albeit, Sporting KC, at least they did show a little bit more fight than I thought they would when they faced against Inter Miami. But yeah, it was pretty obvious that that was a game was just kind of for a show, and not even the cold temperature kind of stopped Messi and friends in that game between Inter Miami and Sporting KC. I mean, I still remember that game of how it was quite crazy. The fact that they were playing in sub-zero temperature in February, in that first leg of the CONCACAF Champions Cup game. Now, looking at the top goal scorer of this team, so as I mentioned, goal scoring is not the main issue of why this team is as bad as they are. In fact, this is kind of one of the highlight of this team. And I will say that, as bad as Sporting KC is, they're a team that is a very, very fun team to watch at time. And we talk about bad teams, and sometimes it could be not just a bad team to watch, but just kind of a very boring team to watch. That's not Sporting KC. I mean, this is a very entertaining team, and mostly due to the fact that they have a lot of good attacking weapons of their own. And if there's one thing that maybe could be a pillar for this Sporting KC side to get themselves back to relevance, they do have a decent attacking core player. That front three with the likes of Joveljic, Garcia, and Showery, that front three can still do things, and especially Jovic himself. I mean, he got off to a slow start this season, but once he get going, it looked like he got himself back into the form that he was with the Galaxy with 18 goals. And of course, a big reason why he really got himself back to form is because Manu Garcia was really the real deal of this team. It feels like they have found a decent DP10 replacement that they've been looking for this last off season. But then you got Daniel Showery with 7 goals, Eric Tommy with 4 goals, Mason Toy actually makes an appearance in the top goal scorer. Kind of a forgotten man, but he steps up with 3 goals. And then Santi Munoz, who they of course just signed for the summer transfer window, also chipped in with 3 goals. Top assist leader, unsurprisingly, is Manu Garcia. He would be at double digit in terms of assists if he didn't get injured. And I think it's no surprise that this SKC side really started to struggle to score goals once he went down with the injury. Like he was the heart and soul of that attack. He was the guy that is the engine when it comes to the attack. And yeah, when he went down, you can clearly see how much they miss him. Then you have Daniel Showery with four assists, Eric Tompney with 4 assists, Shapi Sulemano with 4 assists. Another guy that I forgot to mention could be another key player in terms of this attack. Though I would say that he kind of had a little bit of disappointing season when it comes to his production. They probably wish that he would have had more production in his number. And then Tim Leibo actually rounds up in the top five with 3 assists. Very odd to see a center back ends up in the top five of assists, but that's exactly what we saw in this one. Now, the best win of the season, I was tempting to go with the 2-0 win that they had against St. Louis. I know, Sporting KC fans will say that is most likely the one because, anytime when they're able to beat their hated rival just east of them in the other side of Missouri, yeah, it's definitely considered a great win. But I'm actually going to go with the 4-2 win that they had against Colorado. That was a game where, they show some adversity to come from behind and definitely show some good attacking threat as well throughout the season. Also, a good shout out in terms of this was not a win, but it's still considered to be an improbable result where they came back from 3-0 down to tie 3-3 against Minnesota United early this season. What's kind of interesting is that game really kind of kicked off the narrative, the fact that the 3-0 lead seems like the most dangerous lead this season because with the amount of 3-0 leads that has been blown and also almost been blown this season, that kind of really started the trend this year. But obviously, I'm not going to put that because it doesn't count as a win. Speaking of Minnesota, the worst loss of the year, I'm actually just going to go with their recent one. I mean, I'm looking at the losses that Sporting KC had, even in some of those lopsided game that they had. I'm tempted to maybe go with the Seattle one where they lost 5-2 in that one, but Seattle was such a good team coming out of the Leeds Cup. I don't think it was a big surprise that they lost big in this one. But instead, I'm actually just going to go with their most recent resort where, yeah, that was a very lifeless Sporting KC side. And especially facing against a Minnesota team that just had no confidence whatsoever coming off of an embarrassing 4-0 loss to Chicago and then going off of another heartbreaking loss in the U.S. Open Cup semifinal against Austin. Yeah, you cannot let that kind of team to have a get right moment. I mean, in some way, as a Loons fan, I want to thank Sporting KC for allowing us to have that get right game because yeah, I mean, with the way I mentioned about the Loons and how dire things has had, that was kind of the opponent that I think Minnesota that was very happy to see because yeah, that was a game where Sporting KC just kind of had no resistance whatsoever, and also it doesn't help the fact that they had a lot they pretty much play almost a second team in that one. They were missing some key starters in that game as well. Now, looking at the average attendance, yeah, 16,580. We're started to kind of get to the old Kansas City Wizard day, isn't it, with Sporting KC, where remember back in the Wiz day when they used to play at Arrowhead, pretty much no one showed up for this team. Now, the attendance, of course, eventually got better because the team, of course, got good, but unfortunately, yeah, these last couple of years, and I don't blame Sporting KC fans to not show up for games. I mean, I know some people will say, well, how can you call Sporting KC to have one of the best fan base in the league when they post that ugly of an average attendance, which is the third worst in MLS? Well, when you look at how things have gone with this team, and not just this year, but really the last couple of years that is really ever since the COVID scoring season is over, this team has kind of gone through a downward trend. And, this kind of all started with seeing Peter Vermes. We all know that as good as a head coach he is, eventually things are going to get stale. And I think Sporting Casey just waited way too long to fire Peter Vermes, which is going to be something I'll mention again in just a bit. And because of that, it's just kind of got to a point where, and actually, I want to say that might be also the main reason, but you also got to blame the front office as well. The fact that they let Peter Vermes stay as long as possible. I mean, I know the loyalty, of course, is going to be there because of him being so long with this team, but it just gets to a point where when things are clearly going south and when the window has clearly been slammed shut, you shouldn't be delaying the inevitable of a rebuild. I mean, this team should have been rebuilt themselves a couple of years ago, or at least start thinking about a rebuild or going for a transitional period. But the fact that they never did and kind of just keep delaying the inevitable, this is kind of the stage that Sporting KC find themselves in, where now they really not only need a deep rebuild, but it might take a bit for them to get themselves back to contention. Now, when we look at the MVP of this team, I kind of had a back and forth debate. Should I go with Jovic or Manu Garcia? Both of those guys were key players for the Sporting KC side in what has been a very forgettable season. I go with Dejan Jovic in the end, mainly because at least he played for a majority of the season. Again, if Manu Garcia would have stayed healthy, I would have picked him as the MVP. He is the guy that pulls the foot to this team. It's not very often you see a team that is near the bottom of the standing do have a decent number 9. And I think Marno Garcia could be that guy. I think he's going to get even better as the season goes along. Disappointment. I'm actually going to go with Jake Davis. I know I was thinking about maybe putting Suleimanov there because of his production. But Suleimanov, I will say that at least at times he has shown that he's good with this Sporting KC side. It's just that, again, the production is just not at the level that they hope for. I'm gonna go with Jake Davis as a disappointment because this was a guy that was touted to be a very promising prospect for Sporting KC, and in the last couple of years, you can definitely see the growth of Jake Davis. He has really looked good in that fullback position. I don't know what happened this year. I mean, it just feels like his development has just completely not only just stalled out, but it has gone backwards right now. He has been a huge liability to this team. He just have looked nothing like that promising player that he was for the last couple of years, and because of that, yeah, I gotta put him as a disappointment. It's kind of sad to see how again. I think that with his continued development, I was kind of even thinking the fact that eventually, if he's developed long enough, that maybe he'll attract interest overseas because of the way that he's been playing. But this year, not only that development has stalled, but like I said, that development feels like it's gone backwards. He has been a huge liability for this team. Now, young player to watch for this team. Now, there are a couple of young players on this team that I could say could watch. Most of them came on the defensive end, though. Again, I don't know if I wanted to put both Jacob Bartlett and Janssen Miller as young player to watch, considering they had a pretty rough first season. And I'm not gonna blame them mainly because of how rough they look in the first season. I mean, when you ask a rookie defender being there, and especially young defenders, they're gonna have their struggle and growing pains, and we kind of saw it with both Miller and Bartlett. But I have no doubt that they're gonna get better, and that maybe both of those guys should have had some time with Sporting KC2 instead of just making the jump straight into this team, because I feel like you can clearly see that those are two players that definitely would be help to help their development if they were play in MLS Next Pro instead of just jump straight into it. Well, in the case of Bartlett, he has had some times in MLS Next Pro, but still, I think he probably should have more time. So instead, for the young player to watch, I'm going to go with Santiago Munoz. He has been a really good revelation for the Sporting KC side. He's a very young player, a player that really came out of the gate relatively well. Now things have kind of slowed down a little bit recently, but still, he is a very exciting player and a guy that could be a good backup option for Dejan Jovic in that spot. I mean, can you imagine in the future where Sporting KC can elected to not only have Jovic being there, but once they sub him out, they have a decent attacking super sub in that 9 position with Santi Munoz. I think he is going to be a guy that definitely will play a big part, and definitely a young player to watch for this Sporting KC side heading into next season. So what went right for the Sporting KC side? They didn't lose to St. Louis. So the two meeting that they played this season, they got the 2-0 win against St. Louis in the first game of the season. Then they got the 2-2 draw against St. Louis at City Park. So anytime when you don't lose to your rival in a season, even as bad as the season is, yeah, you're gonna consider that as a positive. Even though I know St. Louis is not doing very well this season as well. In fact, I think they're probably right up there in terms of my next team. I think they're actually gonna be my next team to talk about because they're actually right finish right around the spot with Sporting KC. finish this season as well. The fan base got their wish of firing Peter Vermes. It's been a move that's been long overdue. I mean, as much of a legend as Peter Vermes is to this team, the writing was on the wall. Like the way that this team has regressed to the memes really the last couple of years, it just kind of shows the frustration within the fan base to a point where before I know there was kind of like two sides of supporting KC fan base where some are still loyal to Peter Vermes and said that he can turn things around, but then there's also certain fan base that want Peter Vermes to be removed from this team maybe about 5 years ago as well. But ultimately, it feels like this season and last season as well, where we really started to see a united force in the Sporting KC fan base that everyone agreed that yeah, Peter Vermes he is way past his expiration day, and that they finally got their wish in terms of him finally getting fired for this team after taking charge of the team for over 60 years now. I mean, it's hard to believe how long he was in charge of this team. The attack again, when healthy, it can be scary. So if Marno Garcia can stay healthy, he can be a decent number 10, could be one of the top 10 number 10 in this league. The same with Jovic as well. Jovic has had his time on the IR as well. If he can stay healthy, this attack can definitely be scary. But unfortunately, as good as the attack has been and as fun as this team is, at least on the attacking end, the biggest problem of what went wrong for this season is the defense. I mean, just non-existent whatsoever. We knew this was going to happen, and the fact that they ignored this issue heading into this season. I mean, what did you expect? What was going to happen with this team when you basically needed to address the defense in the offseason and the front office completely ignored it? It's not only just got bad, but it might have just got worse this season. The new interim head coach Booz definitely started to wear off. So, Kerry Zachman was the interim head coach of this team. He did pretty well, at least in the beginning. But again, as I've mentioned before, usually in the beginning, you usually see an interim head coach stepped in. You might get like a little head coach interim head coach boost because players are definitely getting a fresh new voice and definitely want to improve their new interim head coach to be on the team. But yeah, once that boost is over, yeah, you can see this team kind of regress back to the mean. This team, especially in the second half season, looked like where they were in the first half of the season in the latter days under Peter Vermes, a team that just looked very bad all around as the season second half of the season closes. And then, of course, the other thing that went wrong is again they waited way too long to commit it to this rebuild and finally decided to fire Peter Vermes. This kind of long wait it can be catastrophic for a team in terms of trying to get themselves back to competitiveness as soon as possible. And it also kind of frustrates the fan base as well because I get it. The front office want to keep the core and maybe trying to hope that maybe one more piece will be enough to get over the hump. When in reality, one more piece is not enough. The glory days of Sporting KC being a team that regularly make it to the playoffs and compete for MLS Cup. Those days are long over with this team. And by the way, doing that spell, it's was a very impressive spell as well. I mean, they had a decade almost a decade long where they always make it to the playoffs. They even had a stretch where they went 10 years without missing out on the playoffs. What's kind of disappointing about that stretch is that even though they did win that one MLS Cup back in 2013, just kind of had a feeling it could have been more. I like with the core that they had and with the strong teams under Peter Vermes. I mean, it just feels like they probably could have won multiple MLS Cups doing that time. And this is why, as impressive as that time is, again, if you minus the MLS Cup in 2013, you could say that Sporting KC is pretty much the New York Red Bulls of the Western Conference because they're a team that consistently make it to the playoffs and consistently maybe in the conversation of potentially winning MLS Cup as the Red Bulls were for a very long time in the 2010s, and they just never able to get over the hump as well. But again, once things kind of fall apart with this team and the front office didn't realize that, yeah, maybe it's time we need to have a complete reset set, and the fact that that they didn't wait until probably now that they admit that they need to go for a rebuild, that's kind of just shows you why Sporting KC fans are very frustrated in terms of how things have gone the last couple of years with this team. Now, moving forward for this team, so the good news is there is going to be shakeup in terms of the front office, and they recently hired David Lee, who was the president and the mastermind in terms of building that a decent NYCFC team over the years. He's now in charge of this team. Now, one thing I will say is that while I think it's a great choice for this rebuild because we know what David Lee did with NYCFC and what he can do in terms of building that team competitively in the playoffs and also eventually winning MLS Cup in 2021. Not all good GM from their previous job translate into the newer one. I mean, we saw it with Atlanta decided to get Garth Lagerway, and yeah, it didn't go so well for that team didn't it as well. So yeah, it'll be very interesting to see what David Lee will do. There's no doubt that he'll look at this team, and the first thing I think he's gonna fix this team is they need defensive reinforcement. I mean, this is a thing that we said that was the biggest need last season, and the fact that they ignored it again, it just shows you that no surprise that they gave up as many goals that they had. So that's going to be a huge priority in terms of getting a decent back line this off season. Maybe even some midfield depth as well on this team as well, because at times this midfield has kind of been overrun as well. And then the last thing moving forward, and actually the second to last thing, I forgot to put this, and I cannot believe I forgot to put this with the moving forward series about Sporting KC. But first, can John Postcamp find some consistency? So I do feel bad for John Postcamp this season. I mean, his numbers are very ugly, but part of that is because his defense kind of let him down time after time. But there were a time where, especially in the middle part of the season, John Postcamp was actually a decent goalkeeper. It looked like he was a good replacement for Tim Melia, and there's no doubt that I think he's going to continue to be the guy. I mean, they've been having him play behind Tim Melia and being the hair for a very long time now, and now that it is his moment. There's times where he, of course, have capitalized that, especially in the middle of the season. But then we saw what happened in the latter part of the season, especially the last game against Minnesota. I mean, that was ugly from John Postgame. That kind of reminds you of John Postgame when Tim Melia was still there, of the fact that a lot of SKC fans were not really happy when they saw John Postgame being the hair of Tim Melia. So we'll see whether or not if he can find some consistency, and if not, goalkeeping might be another thing that they might be adding in terms of the shopping list of this rebuild that they had. And then the other thing that is going to add to the shopping list, at least for David Lee, they need a new head coach. So the current interim head coach carries that. And then I don't think he's going to get the head coaching role. I mean, I know that he has had some good spell, at least in the beginning of the season. It just feel like it would be very cheap for this front office to do, and it will not make the Sporting KC fan base happy if they decide to go cheap on this and hire someone internally when it's kind of been shown that during the latter part of the season, Kerry Zagman has really done pretty much not much improvement to this team compared to Peter Vermes. So they definitely need a new head coach and a permanent one. Jim Curran is definitely the name that's been thrown out there. Even Tata Martino has been a name that's been thrown out there as well. Those two names I mentioned are probably the most promising head coaching role that a lot of MLS team is going to be looking for. But yeah, it's going to be interesting to see who, of course, Sporting KC is going to hire as their new head coach. And this hiring has to be good as well, because if it's not good, as I mentioned in the beginning of the video, they do not want a DC United situation where once they let go of their longtime head coach and bring in a fresh voice, it didn't work out. Next thing you know, they decide to change another head coach, and then they just go through a coaching carousel, and that coaching carousel doesn't get this team back to the glory days that this team had back in the 2010s. But there you have it. That is pretty much it. Looking at Sporting KC in the Moving Forward series episode. As always, let me know in the comments below what do you think of this video. And if you're a Sporting KC fan, who do you think is the MVP, disappointment, young player to watch? What went right? What went wrong? And most importantly, moving forward, how is this team is going to look heading into next season? But until then, hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I will see you guys next time.